Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. The Atlanta Braves, we talked briefly about it because it was going on while we were recording this, but Sean Murphy hit another home run, and it's crazy how these things work. A guy who's really only played 3 weeks and was hitting like 100, and I think he had like a 16 OPS plus or something, is now all of a sudden almost like a borderline average player. I mean, he's still below average, but another one of these guys that we've talked about that could potentially turn it around, and he has such a massive game. It's only one game, but obviously a good sight to see.
Yeah, he's the type of guy who, just like Austin Riley and Matt Olson, can catch fire over the course of 6 to 8 weeks. We saw it at the beginning of last season. Obviously, the second half wasn't what we wanted to see, but I mean, through June, and I'm pulling that out of my butt, I don't know the exact date, he was a legitimate MVP candidate. I mean, he was obviously behind the dish, he's elite, but in the box, he was absolutely unreal. And at first, obviously that's not who he's going to be for the entirety of his contract with the Braves. But at first, I was looking around like, holy crap, like this guy's an absolute stud. And he is a stud. He's just, a 260 guy who has the ability to go up and slug 600 across a 4-week stretch. And we could potentially be seeing that come to fruition right now. Another guy, Reynaldo Lopez, just goes out there and keeps adding to his Cy Young candidacy, lowers his ERA to what? MLB leading 1.5?
1.57. Yeah. I mean, he was like, listen, yesterday was one of those games, and I think this is the most impressive aspect of Reynaldo Lopez, considering he wasn't a starting pitcher since really 2019 was the last time he had a few starts. It wasn't like he was more of a starter / reliever. That's a half decade where the guy's basically made no starts, turned into a high-end reliever, does this kind of ridiculous transition that we're watching. And it credit to Alex Anthopoulos, who we can talk about later in the show, all of his offseason acquisitions. But, the Tigers pieced together 7 hits, right, over 5 innings, and he goes out there and holds them scoreless. Like, he gets out of every single jam. So he didn't have his best stuff. He wasn't the Reynaldo Lopez we've seen all season, but that's now 12 starts out of 13 where he's allowed 2 earned runs or less. And then you put something, I believe, on our Facebook page from Sarah Langs. He is having that through 13 starts in Braves franchise history, or since 1912. Only one other pitcher, 4-time Cy Young Award winner, Greg Maddux, has a lower ERA through 13 starts. I mean, what he's done to this point in the season, I mean, we're talking about a half season worth of starts. He's at 13. If he makes 30 starts this season, he's pretty much halfway through. And he's doing something we've really never seen.
Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely deserving of praise, and not just from Braves country, but from the national media, from everybody who talks about baseball. This guy has got to be at the forefront of the conversation when we're talking about the best starters in baseball. Now, obviously, he's not going as deep into the games as like Max Fried and maybe some other guys, but over the course of this season, everything is going to shake out as long as he stays rock steady as he has. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable what this guy is doing for $10 million, Alex Anthopoulos. I mean, absolutely unbelievable stuff. And we should talk about his other acquisitions maybe later in the show. But Reynaldo Lopez, at this juncture in the season, there might be a couple of free agents who kind of match his production in whatever facet of the game there are. I mean, yeah, I think it's fair to say he is the best.
He didn't cost $700 million.
Pound for pound, pound for pound, or, war to dollars to war. There's nobody who's doing it better than Reynaldo Lopez right now.
I mean, this has the potential, if it continues, to be one of the best free agent signings in franchise history. Now, will he have a 1.57 ERA?
Absolutely
no. But even if he has
his FIP is below 3.
Yeah, but even if he has a 3 ERA, let's say he maintains he's a 3-year starter for the Atlanta Braves and has an ERA below 3 as his career as a starter for the Atlanta Braves. Getting that for 3 years, $30 million is up there with the best free agent signings you can possibly think of. And it's just the great part about it is, like, we love to talk about Anthopoulos and finding this value where nobody else is looking. And it's like he's one of the few guys, maybe some other team out there, but they didn't, make a push hard as the Braves was thinking about. Was one of the few guys who's like, hey, we actually kind of think we saw you go a couple innings last year. What if we tried to stretch you out as a starter? And frankly, I mean, when you look at the stuff, I mean, now that he's throwing 96, 97, 98 miles per hour with the fastball, he's got that wipeout slider. He's mixing in a very, very good curveball. I mean, I don't want to compare anybody to Spencer Strider, but it kind of is like maybe a Spencer Strider light. And he might have better secondary stuff outside of that just fastball slider combination. So I don't see any reason why he can't be one of the best starters in baseball. And these 13 starts, I mean, that's a long enough sample size to convince me.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than enough. And if you're still waiting and seeing, I think that's more than just, being a hater. That's absolute nonsense. Now, we could talk about the marathon that is the MLB season and what he's going to look like in October. Like we always said, pitching injuries are inevitable. The hope is that it's just something minor.
Injuries.
But that's a legitimate case to be. Not injuries, but fatigue. Stamina. Yeah. Having that stamina. But I think the Braves are doing a great job. First of all, they're not letting him go deep into games very rarely. I mean, most of his outings are less than 6 innings. And on top of that, we've got this 6-man rotation, so he's not pitching every 5th day. So it's, there's reason to be optimistic that this guy in this form is here to stay. And past that, it feels like he's pacing himself. You mentioned that his fastball is now running up to 97, 98, but like on average, and I don't have the stats in front of me, it feels like he's still sitting around 95, 96, but he has that 98 in his back pocket that when he does need it, he'll reach back and give it to you. So it feels like not only is the team pacing him or helping him pace himself, he is, smart enough to realize that he has that in the back. This is a long season. He wants to be here for the long haul. I mean, I'm just overly impressed with the entire situation.
He's absolutely pacing himself. I mean, because if you go look at every single start, you'll see it every single start. He might find a little bit trouble in the 5th or 6th inning because for the most part, he doesn't find trouble early in games. But if he does, he might use it there. But it's like it's only in the biggest moments, or maybe not even the biggest moments, but it's at the end of the game. He's like, all right, let me empty the tank here. I know this is my last inning. And that's when you start to see 98. I've seen 99 a couple times over his last couple starts. So he's getting stronger as the season's going. I've been talking about it. And frankly, at this point, every time I see Reynaldo Lopez like on the starters thing, probable starters, I'm like, dude, the Braves should win this game. And that's how it's been. I mean, he's been unbelievable. But let's talk a little bit about Ramon Laureano. And the guy comes up with a few hits yesterday, including a home run. I mean, this guy has been basically an offensive zero, but how many times have the Braves turned an offensive zero into a piece? And I'm not going to say Ramon Laureano needs to be the starting outfielder at any point down the stretch run after the trade deadline. But I will say, as we get to the trade deadline over these next 4 weeks, would it surprise you at all if Ramon Laureano is just a guy that makes a couple of impact plays, like the mix of him and Forrest Wall out there? It's just kind of how the Braves have worked. And all of a sudden this division is down to 7 games. And I'm not going to sit here. I like it's still 7 games, still a lot of 7 games. Phillies are still playing good baseball. But it just feels like if you can keep this stretch going, if you can win maybe 12 out of 14 games, gain another game, maybe gain another 2 games, and all of a sudden you look up, it's 5, you cut that lead in half over a couple week stretch, and the pressures, it goes from, it's off your shoulders, right? This whole season, this entire season, everyone now is kind of, the pressure is off the Braves' shoulders. Like if they come back and win this division by 10 games, it's going to be like, wow, the Phillies really choked that away. Even if they didn't, even if the Braves won 100 games the rest of the year, that's going to be the storyline. So the pressure is now all on the Phillies. And if you can cut this lead in half or something like that, and in a couple week stretch, that pressure is going to start to get there quick. And then you get 3 months of them kind of playing with their backs against the wall, and you see how they respond.
Yeah, I mean, 7 of 8 Braves have won. Phillies have lost, I believe, 5 of 8 or maybe 5 of 7. Don't quote me on that. So yeah, the Braves are playing great baseball, and obviously the Phillies aren't going to go play sub 500 baseball for several weeks stretch, or I highly doubt it. And the reason for that is because their pitching is just absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, it feels like the Braves are just chipping away, and it's not at this point. We all expected the Braves to be up by 7 games, but the reality is, like you mentioned, now that the Braves are down 7 games, the pressure is all on the Phillies. And not to say that they can't handle it, because they've got some absolute studs over there. But this Braves team has equal, if not more, studs who are very capable of chasing down that team that we hate over the next, 6 to 8 weeks before the trade, or 6 weeks before the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Phillies is, and unlike the Mets, and especially, they've earned, I think, the fan bases and the Braves respect because of what's happened in the postseason. Now you can still hate them. I hate Philly more than I hate New York. Yeah. But I can also say yes, I expect those guys to respond in a proper way. I expect them to play and maybe win 100 games this year. So the Braves are going to have to go on a run. Now we're seeing the horses wake up. Hopefully Michael Harris can come back and be Michael Harris that we've seen in his first 2 seasons. But as far as the pitching goes, it's only going to get stronger. They could improve in the forms of a Bryce Elder coming up, or Ian Anderson, or AJ Smith-Shawver. They can improve in the form of additions at the trade deadline. You get AJ Minter back. So this pitching staff has been, for 2+ months, one of the best in baseball, if not the best in baseball. Maybe them and the Phillies are the 2 best in baseball, but if they can be better than the Phillies the rest of the way, you got to like their chances.
I mean, as far as stats go, the bullpen and the rotation are in top 5 in most categories, the ones that matter, ERA, FIP, all that stuff. The Phillies rotation is absolutely unbelievable, but it's been their bullpen that's lagging behind. Now, obviously still a top 10 unit, but when you have 2 top 5 units in the Braves bullpen and the rotation, you got to like your chances every single night of the week. Oh yeah. And they're doing it shorthanded without arguably their best setup guy in AJ Minter.
Well, and arguably their best pitcher, and Spencer Strider.
Yep.
It's insane to think what this pitching staff would look like with a healthy Spencer Strider. It might be one of the best of all time, which is what we talked about before the season. And people kind of laughed at us. Don't laugh at us. We know what we're talking about.